Can we actually move planets? Imagine for a moment that humanity learned not just to live on planets, but to move them around like giant spaceships. What if we could take Mars and nudge it closer to the Sun to make it warmer? Or find a resource-rich planet somewhere far out in space and drag it over to visit us? Sounds like crazy science fiction, right? But here's the wild part: scientists are already seriously thinking about this. And it turns out that from a physics standpoint, it's not just possible, it's inevitable in the distant future. Today we're going on a journey through one of humanity's most ambitious ideas. We'll talk about how you can actually move entire planets, why we'd want to do it, and what might happen if we really decide to take this step. This isn't just a story about incredible technology, it's about who we want to become as a species. Where did this idea come from? Humans have always dreamed of controlling the heavens. In ancient myths, gods casually moved stars and planets around. Atlas held up the entire world on his shoulders, and Norse gods shaped new stars from sparks. But those were just beautiful stories. Everything changed when science came along. In the 17th century, Kepler figured out how planets move in oval orbits around the Sun, like they're tied by invisible threads of gravity. Later we learned to launch satellites, land on the Moon, send probes to other planets, and just recently we even managed to smash into an asteroid and slightly change its path. But moving an entire planet, that's a whole different level of ambition. The first serious conversations about this started back in the 1980s. Scientists began calculating whether we could change Mars's orbit or even gas giants like Jupiter. Not tomorrow or in 10 years, of course, but in the very distant future when humanity has technologies we can't even dream of right now. Why would we even want to do this? Good question. Why bother moving planets when we could just build spaceships and fly wherever we need to go? First, survival. In about 5 billion years, our sun will start dying and expand into a red giant. Earth will turn into a scorched wasteland. But if we learn how to move planets, we could push Earth farther from the sun and save it. Second, terraforming. Mars is currently too cold and far from the sun, but what if we nudged it closer to our star? Then the ice would melt, we'd get a thicker atmosphere, and maybe even oceans. Mars could become a second Earth. Third, resources. Somewhere out in space there are probably planets packed with rare metals or other useful materials. Instead of flying to them for billions of years, we could just drag such a planet over to us. And finally, just because we can, humanity has always reached for the impossible. We built pyramids without cranes. We flew to space without computers. Maybe moving planets is just the next step in our evolution. How is this even possible? Now for the fun part, how do you actually move something the size of a planet? First, imagine how heavy our Earth is. It weighs about 6 billion trillion tons. That's a number so big it's hard to even wrap your head around. To move something that massive, you'd need energy that all of humanity currently produces over many thousands of years. But there are several ways to get around this problem. Method 1. Gravity slingshots. Remember how spacecraft speed up by flying past planets? They basically steal a little speed from the planet and fly away faster. We could do the same trick with planets, just in reverse. Imagine we find a big asteroid and aim it to fly very close to Mars. The asteroid would pull Mars toward it and slightly change its orbit. Of course, one little push like that wouldn't do much. But if we repeat this thousands of times over millions of years, we could noticeably move a planet. Method 2. Space tugboats. What if we built huge spacecraft with powerful engines and made them push a planet, like tugboats pushing a massive ship in harbour? Sounds simple, but such a project would need the energy of entire stars. For example, to move Earth just 1% closer to the Sun, we'd need to spend as much energy as our star produces in a whole month. Can you imagine that scale? Method 3. Stellar engines. The most fantastic but also most efficient way would be to build a giant structure around the Sun that collects its energy and directs it toward moving planets, or even move our entire solar system like a huge cosmic recreational vehicle. In 2023, scientists from Oxford calculated how such a thing could work. According to their math, billions of years from now when the Sun starts dying, we could actually push Earth away from it and save the planet. What could go wrong? Of course, it's not that simple. Moving planets is like playing cosmic chess where one mistake could destroy everything. Our solar system is incredibly delicate. All the planets are in perfect balance, and if you move one, it affects all the others. Jupiter, for example, protects us from asteroids by pulling them toward itself. If we move it too far away, Earth could get hammered by a real asteroid storm. Plus, the calculations would have to be absolutely perfect. The tiniest error and Mars could crash into Venus, or Earth could drift off its orbit and fly away into cold space. And time is another problem. Even with the most advanced technologies, moving a planet would take millions of years. That means one generation of people would have to start the project, and completely different people would finish it, hundreds of thousands of generations later. Do we even have the right? But even if we technically can move planets, there's another question. Should we? The solar system has existed for almost 5 billion years. It holds the history of how everything around us was born and developed. By changing it, we might erase important traces of the past, like tearing pages out of the universe's history book. And what if we find a planet with life and drag it over to us? Do we have the right to do that to other worlds? It's like walking into someone else's house and rearranging all their furniture to suit our taste. And who gets to decide which planets to move and which to leave alone? What if different countries or groups of people can't agree? After all, such a project would require the efforts of all humanity. Future scenarios. Let's imagine what might happen if we actually learn to move planets. Scenario 1. The Great Migration. The year 2500. Humanity has built a massive structure around the Sun that collects its energy. Over millions of years, we gradually moved Earth and Mars so they now orbit close to each other in the perfect zone for life. Mars is covered with oceans and forests, with cities blooming and billions of people living there. But such a project cost an incredible amount. Many countries' economies collapsed, people suffered, and the rich and poor were finally divided between those who live on Earth and those who move to the new Mars. Scenario 2. The Cosmic Mistake, the year 3000. An attempt to move Jupiter went wrong. A calculation error caused the asteroid belt to break apart, sending thousands of huge rocks flying toward Earth. Humanity threw everything into defending the planet, but many cities were destroyed. Colonies on the Moon and Mars had to be evacuated, and Earth needed centuries to recover. Scenario 3. The Galactic Gardeners, the year 5000. We didn't just learn to move planets, we learned to bring them from other star systems. We dragged a beautiful planet from another star to our Sun, rich with resources. It became a center of science and research, from where humanity began exploring the entire galaxy. But on this planet we found strange ruins and artifacts. Questions arose. Did we steal someone else's world? Did we destroy someone's civilization without even noticing? What's the point of all this? The idea of moving planets isn't just about technology. It's about who we want to be as a species. On one hand, it shows our greatest quality reaching for the impossible. We built pyramids, flew to the moon, created the internet. Maybe moving planets is just the next step in our development. On the other hand, it's also a test of our wisdom. Can we use such power responsibly? Will we repeat the mistakes of the past, when powerful technologies were used for wars and destruction? Every time we look at the starry sky, we see not just beautiful points of light, but potential worlds that could someday become part of our home. But with that possibility comes enormous responsibility. Conclusion. Moving planets is the most ambitious idea in human history. It requires technologies we don't have yet, the energy of stars, and time that exceeds all of our recorded history. But most importantly, it requires us to decide who we want to become. Conquerors of space who take whatever we want, or wise gardeners of the universe who care not just about ourselves, but about the great cosmic home we're part of. The answer to that question will determine not just whether we can move planets, but whether we deserve such power. For now, we can only dream and plan. But who knows? Maybe thousands of years from now our descendants will look at the sky where a terraformed Mars shines next to Earth, and remember those who first believed in the impossible. The universe is vast and full of wonders, and perhaps the greatest wonder is that tiny creatures from a tiny planet dared to dream about rebuilding the very fabric of space itself.